Welcome. I'm so glad that you can join me here today on 257, excerpts 647, 48, and 49, to further expand on what is faith. This is an audiovisual version of my book named after my ministry, TheSovereignLight, and this is a course in metaphysical spirituality. How do you do? My name is Reverend Maria Arvanitidis. And just like always, this process of learning how to be grounded in this moment, in this presence of the here and now. And we do this by focusing on our breathing. And just take a few deep breaths in, stretch if you have to, like the falcon in the background. Isn't this just beautiful? Just really nice, and you can just take that in for a moment. And take a few deep breaths in and out. So, faith. What is faith? Faith is the idea of completely becoming reliant on the notion of a particular outcome rather than the probability that the outcome will happen despite the environment. The emphasis must always be on the way the self will feel at any given moment. By this, the meaning and every situation can be changed for what it witnesses to also change. Now, faith can also be blind, with imagery to idolize that it must come in a certain package and not in any other way for it to feel fulfillment and in the achieving of the energy it will attract. It might not come and from within the same configuration. See it for what it brings rather than for what it is not. Likewise, something that is beautiful and in the way that is preferred externally might not be, and on the inside resembling, in fact, the opposite. And today, oh, look at the beaver. Isn't that nice? And so I like to hear you say these words out loud. The more that you can participate, obviously, the more you will get out of this. So you can always play it back, pause it throughout the day, and let this be your guide, motivator, and see what you can get throughout the day with this activation. Let's begin. Sounds good. I want to hear you. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment. And I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being. And take another deep breath in and out. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment. And I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being. And take another deep breath in. Feel your lungs expanding. The deeper you can breathe, the more you will get out of this. The product of an afterthought is my external environment. And I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment, and I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment, and I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being, moment by moment. In this momentum that's created, and with every breath that animates us and reanimates our reflective configuration that we call our circumstances, and with it, the echo effect with every action and decision and choices that we make. The self is entitled to perceive and from its own perspective with it. The same external environment is all about the meaning, and that the self will wish to hold. In any given moment, whatever we give meaning to is this perspective that we perceive our world to be, and through that perspective that we give meaning by the meaning that the self will give to its experience, and from every circumstance its external world will give to it, is all in the interpretation of it. What then becomes of faith? Faith can upgrade and to a more simplified version in its application. The self will see only in whatever it believes and will reflect back to it. Yes, it is true. With faith, the reality can eventually change. For every meaning it will interpret and reanimate, like all the animals that we see in the background, and how we shift and shift our reality, as well as we, from one moment to the next, are regenerating on a cellular level and reinterpreting how we appear to others and ourselves as the reflection. It could be called aging as well, if you'd like. Or, yes, we don't always stay the same from one moment to the next, as we are reanimated. And yes, it is true, with faith, the reality can eventually change. How we feel, how we think about ourselves and our surroundings and everything else around us that we might project onto others, of how we see them. For every meaning it will interpret, and the subject that it will attract and attach to. However, all is an illusion from its patterning and as a byproduct to its world. And moving on to 648. Take a nice deep breath in. As I hug the sky when I look up, give yourself a hug and let's begin. See how much you can take in. And throughout the day, repeat these words, or listen to them, or read them, or make a note. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment, and I have faith. It will change with every shifting of my being, with every shifting of your being. In this moment, how are you being? How are you presenting yourself? How is your presence feeling? What are you thinking? If not anything at all, and just feeling. Yes, it is true. With faith, reality can eventually change. However, all is an illusion. From this patterning, the byproduct of its world, and the meaning it will interpret onto every subject it will attach to. Electromagnetic is the primary subformations, and that judgment is at the very root of. Every thought, whether directly or indirectly, of the self, will magnetically attract to it an emotion, or vice versa. When you get to a level of clearing, you won't need to trick the way you feel by how you think or what it is you're thinking, that like your ego in the driver's seat or your mind in the driver's seat. It will be your heart and how you feel. And you don't need to explain anything or have to think, why am I crying? You just are. It's okay. You don't have to give a reason or a meaning to it. And in this way, how you feel is the missing link to the secret on the law of attraction. And we get to this level where we become creator beings. And we use the law of one, excuse me, the law of Ra in oneness. And we no longer are in the category of victim-perpetrator. Rather, we become responsible of our creations. And every thought, whether directly or indirectly of the self, will magnetically attract to it an emotion, or the other way around. An emotion can be used to attract a thought that can collapse into a form and a situation. As long as the force is not enforcing on others, like your will to go against another's will of what they prefer, then there won't be any conflict or any resistance, unless they are accepting of it and receiving of it. And the very same as the self feeling and then having a thought attached to it, whether it be from a very primitive state and or an awakened one, the self is the creator and responsible for everything it sees and senses from its external world. Faith is an inside job, and from it, mountains can be moved, and for the many to aspire change. from when the self has no invested interest and to this change in them. The only attachment the self is allowed to have is that of itself and in its very own faith to see and feel the world as a better place. I think, was it Socrates or somebody ancient who said, if you have nothing good to say, do not say it. Always invest in promoting and supporting the good in everyone and everything. And this way, it becomes a momentum. Now, what momentum do you want to see animate and reanimate? Collectively, for you internally and externally, and for the rest of the world. The more detailed your faith, your, the inner eye or the seer, or every 26,000 years we go into from a galactic perspective rather, we are in the Polaris. Before that, in Egyptian time, we were in this thing called the Dracon, which is in the center. It looks like a kite, and it's constant. It never changes. Everything else changes, but it is the observer. And so I know it's like we give twisted meanings and everything becomes distorted. But that's the real Dracos, the all is one of all animals put together, and the power of that connection of everything as one, and how we choose to see the world and believe it to be, not on a collective level of responsibility to enslave with, rather an independent version of this thing called responsibility, where we all fit in to the greater picture. And with that said, faith is something that is seen from within, that's already happened, but not in the physical reality. And if it has, probably in another parallel reality that we can shift into with our frequency that's created electromagnetically. And so, let's continue on. The more detailed it gets, the more fleeting the thoughts must be, and very subtle, to suggest like seedlings in the wind. So if we want something, we can see it in great detail how it is we want it. And it's like sucking it through a straw. There's resistance in that straw, and there could be a resilience at the same time felt, but the more expectations we have of something that we want it in a certain way, the more challenges or disappointments that can happen, rather than just to feel it and accept it and become more general of it. Then we can be direct, like with our feelings. But when we have so much invested, like in a port form or a plan, like a business plan, and every little detail that we have to prove to others, it becomes more effort into it, it becomes more difficult, and it has to have an indirect approach to it, like work on it and leave it and then do something else kind of thing and let it work itself out. Don't overthink things. That's my advice on those things. So let's continue on reading. The more general the thought, the longer the self can stay on it, to feel it formulate into. In the way it could breathe life into its business, to give it reason for integrity, and to exchange for currency its energy. Yes, we're already getting into this digital currency. It's already going to start happening, but on a synthetic level more so than a biological level. However, the purpose is to determine for today that within its own right, the self and onward, right, is the embodiment and very own unique interpretation of the supreme being of all things living and dead. So the purpose for today and onward is to determine that within your own right, you have this embodiment and very own unique interpretation of things that of it, this supreme being of all things, living and dead. For all things that are and are to be, of having the creative energy that faith can bring, this value is to witness over the art of its creative currency and in its expression. Faith is the emphasis that the self does bring to its existence and to experience life with. And as the days ahead come, whether you require vaccination to see this and better grasp the intelligence of it, to be able to comprehend all that is said, or even for the unvaccinated who have spiritually done the work that can connect and relate to this as well. It's all inclusive. I just love this artwork. And with that said, I will leave you here today to take 2 days, and congratulations for making it through the 225th lesson. Just take a break, and happy Canada Day for making it through. And this lesson, this is a rest period, and to take the lessons independently as a review for all that we have said and accomplished for today from this 365-day program consisting of 319 lessons. And so take these 2 days to recalibrate and make notes and review. And like always, say these words throughout the day. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment, and I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment, and I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being. And take another deep breath in. The byproduct of an afterthought is my external environment, and I have faith it will change with every shifting of my being. Make this day to acknowledge the byproduct of an afterthought or any afterthoughts throughout the day, and say these words that they may be acknowledged, that these afterthoughts are, in fact, to be uncovered as the external in your environment, and to have faith that it will change with every shifting of your being.